Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the On Cloudboom Strike LS. The Cloudboom Strike LS is the LightSpray version of the On Cloudboom Strike, which is On's new top carbon plate racing shoe. The LS refers to this LightSpray upper, which is obviously a very distinctive feature on the shoe, one that we've seen on the feet of Hellen Obiri at the Olympics and at the Boston Marathon. The price we have at the moment at $330 and I think £330, although it's not quite confirmed yet. It's going to be released later this year. The weight is very light. It's 192 grams or 6.8 ounces in my UK size 9, and that's one of the benefits of this LightSpray upper. It is very lightweight and it makes it a fair bit lighter than the standard Cloudboom Strike. The drop is 4mm and you've got a stack height of 39.5mm at the heel, dropping to 35.5 at the forefoot. So the LightSpray upper is the star feature of this particular version of this shoe. It is a upper that's applied by a robot to a last using 1.5 kilometers of material. There's a great video you can see out there of it winding round and round to create this upper. It's a very thin material with no glue or seams. It's recyclable and it reduces waste as a result, and it's bonded to the midsole using thermal fusing technology. It's a very interesting upper all round. I'm going to talk lots more about it in the review, but I think probably the most important thing is how lightweight it is compared to the standard one, and that makes the Cloudboom Strike LS version one of the lightest carbon plate running shoes on the market. Underneath that upper you've got two layers of On's Helion HF PIBA based midsole material, nice bouncy lightweight foam with a stiff carbon speedboard running between that. You've got no sock liner or strobel, so you kind of sit directly onto the foam there. You've got a rubber outsole with pretty good coverage actually, considering how lightweight the shoe is. It's a pretty thin material. There is a fair bit of exposed foam in the midfoot, but after 100k of running I'm not seeing anything too drastic in terms of wear and tear yet. So fit's obviously a very big question when it comes to the LightSpray version of the Cloud Striker. How does this upper feel? How does it last? That kind of thing. So I've got a UK 9 here, which is a US 9.5. That's my normal size and it fits me very well. I have quite a narrow foot. I have quite an unfussy foot in general. I think it's going to be important here because I've gotten really well with this upper. I've had no problems with it in terms of rubbing or comfort or stretching or moving around whilst on the run. It's worked really well for me. But uppers do tend to work quite well for me. Maybe if you've got a wider foot, I generally have a bit more of a problem with uppers. It might be something to look out for more with the shoe, but I think it's worked really well. I love how lightweight it is. It's a bit tricky to get the shoe on at times, but once it's on, I've held my foot very securely on the run, done a lot of fast running in the shoe, lots of cornering, that kind of stuff, and I've had no problems at all with kind of lateral stability or the upper stretching over time. That's another thing I was very keen to test. That's why I've done a few more miles than usual for this review at 100k, just to really see if there's any kind of give in this upper at all after that time, and there isn't. So far, like, it's just as secure as it was. I've not seen any kind of worrying signs of wear and tear, anything like that at all. This material still feels very strong and no like stretching, like I say, and that is the big worry because it's a one-piece upper. If it starts to stretch, that's kind of game over. The shoe is then unusable, and I've not seen that so far. So fingers crossed that isn't going to be a problem with the shoe. And like I say, so far I haven't had any concerns, but also, like I say, I do have an unfussy foot, so I am worried that it won't necessarily be the case for everyone. I wonder if in the future Honor's going to look at more almost personalization of this fit, because with this robot technology, in theory you can make an upper very quickly and get it very much adapted to someone's foot, like I'm sure they've done with Hellen Obiri. But in my normal size with a standard version of the upper, it's worked really well for me. I like it a lot. So I've run 100k in the odd Cloudboom Strike LS, doing a mix of hard training runs. I've done a tough track session. I've done a park run as well, in between two kind of tempo-paced 5ks, a horrible progression run, a 15-miler, a good mix of hard training runs. I didn't manage to do another race in the shoe after that park run because the one I was going to do I couldn't make because of a family thing, but overall, I feel like I've really done a lot of hard running in this shoe and I really like it. I think it's excellent. I think On's really knocked it out of the park here. The upper's very good, as I talked about, but the main upgrade here compared to past shoes is this midsole. Foam feels better than ever, and they've got the geometry right to create, what really feels like a carbon super shoe that can compete with the best on the market. That ride has that propulsive carbon feeling that you expect now. It's not quite as soft and springy as some shoes, things like the Alphafly or the Cielo X1, but you are getting a nice amount of punch with a level of firmness that isn't at all harsh or uncomfortable. It just gives you that platform to push and bounce against. It gives you that responsiveness, and it reminds me a lot of the foam used in the Metaspeed Paris series that I've really loved this year, the Sky and the Edge. I think you're getting almost a similar level of responsiveness here in this foam, which doesn't have necessarily the big sink in and bounce that you can get from some shoes, but does give you that really direct, fast feeling while still having loads of comfort. So like, I've done long distances in the shoe. It's a really comfortable shoe, but you do get that almost grounded, responsive feeling that you want for shorter races, for feeling fast, which is what the shoe's all about. It's about running fast, and you really do feel the speed in it. and it is really, really light, which does make a big difference. I think there was a period after the initial explosion of carbon plate shoes where brands just started cramming more and more foam into the midsole and putting more and more technology in there to create really, really bouncy shoes, and the weight went up as a result, but kind of the bounce was offsetting that weight gain. And now I think brands are starting to move back the other way. We saw with Asics making a very lightweight shoe. Obviously the Adidas Pro Evo 1 is very lightweight, and the benefits of having a light shoe I don't think can be overstated. As someone who's a high cadence runner, I shuffle around a lot, I really like having a lightweight shoe, and this is a very lightweight shoe, and it really helps at times when you're starting to drag, your feet are starting to go, your legs are starting to go. You can just keep picking up and turning your feet over because you've got that really lightweight design beneath you. Look, on the kind of the two hardest runs, that lightness did come into play. I've done the shoe. So one was the first run where I did 2 5Ks at 3:30 per K pace, sandwiching a park run. I think I ran around 16:16, and towards the end of the park run, towards the end of the second rep, just having the lightweight shoe to keep picking up and getting, a good engagement from the plate still, but I'm not necessarily driving into it with as much kind of force and purpose as I do at the start of a fast run. By the end, you're just trying to keep going a bit, and I still think you're getting a nice amount of bounce from the shoe in that lightweight design then, which really helps. And then that progression run I did, which was a 45-minute progression, 15 minutes a 6-minute mile, 50 minutes at 5:45 a mile, and then 50 minutes at 5:30 a mile. Hard run, struggling in the last 10 minutes there, but was able to hold on pace, again with the shoe just making it easy to keep my feet turning over, giving you that nice, efficient, bouncy feeling. Lots of that stuff there was at kind of slightly slower race paces, apart from really the park run itself, but you can push all the way up to fast paces in it. I've done a 10 times 1K session at 3:20 per K pace, and a 24 times 60 seconds on, 30 seconds off session where I was running kind of around 3:10 per K in the 60-second blocks. It just feels like a really good all-pace racing shoe because it's lightweight, but it's got that comfort and that bounce. Did 50 miles in it, again, nice and comfortable underfoot. Wasn't necessarily going for like a fast run on that 15-miler, but maintained a good, steady pace throughout with the support and the bounce you want. So on the upper, no complaints with the upper so far. No rubbing, no problems. I mentioned in the fit section. There's a lot more in the fit section about the upper. I don't have a very fussy foot, but I've enjoyed the feeling of the upper. No worries about stretching yet. Midsole still feels nice and durable after 100K, and no concerns about the outsole either in terms of durability. So yeah, all around, very positive run test for me after 100K in the Cloudboom Strike LS. So a verdict to be that this is easily On's best racing shoe so far. I do think it's a shoe that stands up well against the market at large. If you're going to pull this shoe on for a race, I think you'd be pretty confident you're not really losing out compared to the other carbon shoes on the market, which wasn't the case, I think, with the Cloudboom Echo 3, which was pretty solid carbon racing shoe, but this is a step up in terms of performance. It's lighter, it's bouncier, it's got more protection underfoot. It just feels like a better shoe all round. And like I say, I do think it competes well with the best on the market. Price is very high though, and that is going to be a problem, I think, for this shoe, because there are certainly shoes out there that I think are as good as it or better than it that are coming in a fair bit cheaper. Basically every carbon shoe is cheaper than it except for the Adidas Pro Evo 1, which is pretty much impossible to get hold of anyway. My favourite carbon racing shoe at the moment is the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris. I think that is still my favourite carbon plate racing shoe. I prefer it to the On Cloudboom Strike LS. It's a fair bit cheaper, it's a tiny bit lighter, it's got a really impressive bouncy feeling underfoot, and if you don't quite like that feeling, there's the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris, which is also an incredible carbon racing shoe that comes in a fair bit cheaper. Obviously the Nikes are still out there. You've got the Alphafly 3, which is a bouncier shoe, a more propulsive shoe. Like, I think some people prefer the feel of that to the On Cloudboom Strike LS because you've got that slightly more booming bounce you get from the Alphafly. I quite like the kind of more light feel and the bounce you get from the Cloudboom Strike as well, but I think it's pretty comparable there. Alphafly's a fair bit cheaper. Vaporfly's kind of just a little bit heavier, very lightweight feel as well. Another shoe that I think is at the same kind of level as the Cloudboom Strike LS that's again coming in a fair bit cheaper. So that is kind of the problem the shoe has. Like, the price is really, really high. You can get shoes for a lot less. There's the Adidas Adios Pro 3, which is always available in sales now as a slightly older carbon shoe. Like, I do prefer the ride of the On Cloudboom Strike LS to that shoe. It's a much lighter shoe that I think works better for me and turns over better, but Adios Pro 3 is still a very good racing shoe and is a lot cheaper. It's also actually the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 3, which came out this year, which is kind of also a very lightweight shoe, a very good value shoe, especially in the UK for a carbon plate racing shoe. I think the performance is very high with the Puma, and I think it's one that people might overlook a little bit. But if I had a race tomorrow, going for a PB over any distance, and I had the On and the Puma right there, it's a bit of a toss-up for me which one I'd go for in terms of just pure performance. And then if you add in the price as well, the Puma is a lot cheaper, and that obviously makes it a more appealing option. And a couple more comparisons. You've got the Hoka racing shoes. You've got the Rocket X2 that I think has a similar feel. It's a bit heavier actually than the On, and I prefer the On Cloudboom Strike LS to the Rocket X2. I think this is a more impressive carbon shoe. Again, much more expensive. The Cielo X1 is a really fun shoe, incredibly bouncy, real booming bounce, quite durable as well. I put a lot of miles into that shoe this year. The On is a lot lighter. I think if it came to race day, I'd prefer to be in the Cloudboom Strike LS over the Cielo X1, but it's a very fun shoe to run in and just a really good racing shoe with a very bouncy ride. side. You've got the Saucony racers out there as well. I prefer the Cloudboom Strike LS to the Saucony Elite and the Endorphin Pro 4. The Elite, I think, is an amazing shoe. I just don't really get on with it that well. I find the ride quite harsh, and I think the rocker's almost too aggressive for me, which is not usually the case for me. I usually love a rocker. Endorphin Pro 4, I think, is a really good shoe, but not quite as comfortable as the On, not quite as bouncy as the On. So I'd take the Cloudboom Strike over those shoes. I haven't tested the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2 yet. That's not really been available too much as yet. So yeah, I do think it's right up there in terms of overall tiers and performance like that. I think I have the Asics a little bit ahead of it, but I do think there's loads of other shoes then in the kind of melee that might depend a bit more on personal preference, what exactly you're looking for in your carbon racing shoe, what kind of ride feel you like. On pure performance, I do think the Cloudboom Strike LS is a very, very good shoe. The price certainly handicaps it a bit, and there will still be some concerns about the upper not fitting perfectly for you unless you get some kind of personalized experience when they're making the shoe. As I've mentioned throughout the review, I have a fairly unfussy foot, and the shoe works really well for me in just a standard size, but it is one that's probably going to give you a bit more of a risk than one with laces that you can adjust. And obviously I've only done 100k in this shoe, so there might still be a chance of some stretching down the line, but I do think it's a very resilient material actually, this upper, and I'm not too worried about that anymore. So yeah, overall a very enjoyable shoe. Loved using it. On pure performance, it's right up there. You are going to get better value elsewhere with carbon plate racing shoes though, and yeah, the upper might still be a concern for some people, even though I found it pretty much spot on for me. That is our review of the On Cloudboom Strike LS. Let us know what you think of the shoe in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.